Hello, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching Eagle News International. Good evening, CJ.
Good evening, Alma, and good evening to everyone joining the broadcast. Here are tonight's headlines.
In a surprise move, Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa filed his certificate of candidacy as the standard bearer of the ruling party, PDP Laban.
United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres brands rich nations hugging vaccines or vaccine supplies and stupid and immoral, saying choking off poor countries' access to jabs risks undermining their own defenses against the pandemic.
We can reach 40%.
And a gigantic sandstorm blocks out the horizon as it rolls towards Sao Paulo, Brazil.
The U.S. Senate voted to stave off a credit default that would have sparked a recession and roiled the world markets as Democrats and Republicans agreed to a stopgap fix to raise the nation's debt limit.
First, here in the country, in a surprise move, Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa filed his certificate of candidacy as the standard bearer of the ruling party PDP Laban. Now, de la Rosa filed his COC to run as president in the 2022 elections just before the lapse of the 5 p.m. deadline on October 8 for the filing of his candidacies. Under COMELEC rules and regulations, particularly Resolution Number 10717, substitution of official candidates or aspirants is allowed on or before November 15, 2021. President Duterte has said before that he is hoping for a Sara-Go tandem for PDP Laban, referring to his daughter Davao City Mayor Inday Sara and his former longtime aide, Senator Christopher Bongo. Go has already filed his candidacy for the vice presidential bid under PDP Laban and was even accompanied by President Duterte, who declared he was officially retiring from politics. Sara, however, filed her COC also on Saturday, October 2, seeking re-election as Davao City Mayor. De la Rosa's move filing his COC as presidential candidate under PDP Laban, his running mate will be fellow Senator Go for the 2022 polls.
Meanwhile, the quarantine period for fully vaccinated individuals who had direct exposure to COVID-19 patients but do not exhibit symptoms has been shortened to 7 days, according to Malacanang. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases, or IATF-PID, approved Thursday the altered protocol for close contact with probable suspect and confirmed cases of COVID-19. Take a look.
Inaprubahan din ng inyong IATF ang protocols para sa close contacts ng probable, suspect, or confirmed COVID-19 cases. Sa mga fully vaccinated at close contacts ng probable at confirmed cases COVID-19 cases ay maaaring mag-quarantine ng 7 araw basta siya ay walang pinakitang simptomas sa loob ng 7 araw. Kung sakaling kailangan ng asymptomatic individual na magpa-swab test, kailangan matest na hindi mas maaga sa ika-5 araw pagkatapos ng ma-expose. Kung nagpositibo o nagkaroon ng mga simptomas, kailangan sumunod sa testing at isolation protocols. Samantala, hindi po kailangan ng testing at quarantine sa close contacts na na-trace na lumampas ng 7 araw at walang pinakitang sintomas. Sa mga hindi bakunado o partially vaccinated na may close contacts na suspect, probable at confirmed COVID-19 cases, kailangan nila mag-quarantine ng 14 na araw.
Hindi pa yan kasi mabagal ang niya.
Meanwhile, the IATF also revised the guidelines on the alert level system for COVID-19 response in Metro Manila. That, according to Secretary Roque, the amendment would allow the point-to-point interzonal travel of several individuals to areas under General Community Quarantine or GCQ or Modified Community Quarantine or MGCQ. Take a look.
Naglagay din ng inyong IETF ng bagong probisyon sa guidelines on the pilot implementation of alert level systems for COVID-19 response in the National Capital Region. Pinapayagan na po ang point-to-point interzonal travel sa mga lugar na nasa general community quarantine at modified general community quarantine sa mga below 18 years old, mga fully vaccinated na lampas 65 years of age, fully vaccinated na merong comorbidities, fully vaccinated ng mga buntis, subject sa guidelines at health protocols ng Department of Tourism and the local government unit of destination.
The Philippines will be removed from the United Kingdom's travel red list starting October 11. The UK Embassy said that today. Now, the Philippines is on the red list for entering England from 4 a.m. on Monday, October 11. The Philippines will no longer be on that list for entering England, and that according to the UK government in its latest advisory. London included the Philippines on the red list in April at the height of spikes in global cases due to emerging COVID-19 variants. Now, from 54, the number of red list countries will be cut to just 7. Colombia, the Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Haiti, Panama, Peru, and Venezuela starting October 11. Now, fully vaccinated passengers and eligible minors returning from the 47 countries and territories will be removed from the list and will no longer be required to enter hotel quarantine.
Now, like the UK, the Philippines is also easing its entry protocols for individuals in countries with a low number of infections. The Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases is reducing the quarantine period for travelers from both green and yellow list countries starting today. Take a look.
Inapruban po at naglabas noong Webes October 7 ang inyong IETF ng updated testing at quarantine protocols sa mga galing sa green at yellow list countries. Magsisimula po ito sa Oktubre 8 ng taong ito. Sa mga fully vaccinated na mula sa green or yellow list, kailangan nilang mag-facility-based quarantine hanggang lumabas ang kanilang negative RT-PCR test na isasagawa sa ika-5 araw. Pagkatapos ito, kinakailangan nilang mag-home quarantine hanggang sa ika-10 araw. Samantala, ang mga hindi bakunado, partially vaccinated o mga pasahero na hindi ma-verify o makumpirma ang kanilang vaccination status na galing sa green or yellow list countries ay kinakailangan mag-facility-based quarantine hanggang lumabas ang kanilang RT-PCR test na isinagawa sa ika-7 araw. Pagkatapos ito, kinakailangan mag-home quarantine hanggang sa ika-14 na araw. Ulitin ko po sa mga fully vaccinated, 5 days facility quarantine, PCR test, 5 days home quarantine. Sa mga hindi bakunado, 7 days facility quarantine, 7 days home quarantine.
Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergeira on Friday said the repeat RT-PCR test for workers who completed their 14-day quarantine is no longer needed as long as they have a certificate of completion. Now, in a virtual briefing, Vergeira said this also applies to employees afflicted with COVID-19 who recovered and finished their isolation. Take a look.
Meron ho tayong Department of Labor and Employment na policy issuance kung saan isinaad po na hindi po kailangan ng repeat test para po sa ating mga kababayan na nakatapos ng 14 days quarantine o di kaya nagkasakit para sila ay makabalik sa kanilang trabaho. As long as they already have their clear governments or private physicians that they have completed their quarantine period or isolation period, dapat po tinatanggap na po natin. So nananawagan po kami sa ating mga employers, pati na rin po sa ating mga local governments and the Department of Labor and Employment that this be monitored dahil hindi naman po talaga nagkakaroon tayo ng challenge para sa ating mga employees para makapasok sila kailangan pa nito mga test. hindi naman ho natin nire-require sa ating mga policies yan.
Hindi pa yan kasi mabagal ang
Vaccinated or partially vaccinated individuals exposed to a COVID-positive person are required to undergo a 14-day quarantine. The quarantine period, meanwhile, for fully vaccinated persons who do not exhibit symptoms has been shortened to just 7 days. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque on Friday said the interagency task force for the management of emerging infectious diseases approved on Thursday the altered protocols for close contact with probable suspect and confirmed cases of COVID-19.
Meanwhile, the World Health Organization said it was about to restart the process of approving Russia's Sputnik V COVID-19 vaccine following a series of problems with the dossier. WHO authorization has been sought for the Sputnik V jab created by Russia's Gamaleya Research Institute, which is already being used in 45 countries, according to an AFP count. Several COVID-19 vaccines have been given the WHO green light for emergency use during the pandemic. Pfizer, BioNTech, Janssen, Moderna, Sinopharm, Sinovac, and AstraZeneca in various plants. For Sputnik V, the process was put on hold due to the lack of some legal procedures, according to Mariangela Simao, the WHO Assistant Director General for Access to Medicines, Vaccines, and Pharmaceuticals. Sputnik V is already being used in countries including Algeria, Argentina, India, Iran, Mexico, Pakistan, the Philippines, Sri Lanka, the United Arab Emirates, Venezuela, and Russia itself.
The head of the WHO, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, and Secretary General Antonio Guterres spoke at the launch of the World Health Organization strategy to achieve global COVID-19 vaccination by mid-2022. The United Nations chief brands rich nations hugging vaccine supplies as stupid and immoral, saying choking off poorer countries' access to jabs risks undermining their own defenses against the pandemic.
Now we stand on the precipice of failure if we don't make the benefits of science available to all people in all countries right now.
With vaccine production now at nearly 1.5 billion doses per month, we can reach 40% of people in all countries by year's end, if we can mobilize some $8 billion to ensure that distribution is equitable. Because crucially, the success of this plan requires equitable distribution. Not to have equitable distribution of vaccines is not only a question of being immoral, it is also a question of being stupid.
The strategy outlines the priority actions needed from the different actors to achieve the targets.
Meanwhile, Britain's National Health Service, which provides free healthcare funded from general taxation and welfare contributions, is one of the world's largest and most cosmopolitan employers. But the NHS, which listed 211 nationalities in England alone in 2020, faces chronic staff shortages. By 2029, the state-run service in England will face a shortfall of 108,000 nurses, according to the Health Foundation think tank. Now there are fears the crisis will further deepen due to a combination of shocks depleting its substantial foreign workforce, retirement, the coronavirus pandemic, Brexit, and tougher immigration rules. Migration has long been a stopgap solution as Britain suffered recurring crisis for 40 years, according to Mark Dillon, policy analyst at the Nuffield Trust Health think tank. Under Britain's new points-based immigration system, migrants must meet salary and English proficiency levels and have an offer for a skilled job, although a special visa scheme exempts healthcare workers. And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
This portion is brought to you by North Luzon Express Terminal.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
Araw-araw sa panahon ngayon, may daming tanong kailangan ng tugon. Nandito si Ali at si Papi na rin, ang smart at pretty nanay, ang siglabang ng kwentuhan. Ang sigaw ng Pinoy Nation, information, education. Ating saloobin, ipakita natin ang sagot sa problema natin. Ano sa palagay nyo? Ano sa palagay nyo? Ano sa palagay nyo?
Ano sa palagay nyo? Abangan! Simula October 18, Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 8 hanggang alas 10 ng umaga. Mapapanood sa Net25 TV, Facebook page and YouTube channel. Mapapakinggan din sa DZEC 1062 at Eagle FM 95.5.
Welcome back to the news. A 6.1 magnitude earthquake jolted the Japanese capital, Tokyo, and surrounding areas Thursday evening, reportedly injuring more than 20 people. But the Japan Meteorological Agency said there was no tsunami risk. The quake sent buildings swaying, stranded commuters, knocked products off store shelves, and triggering emergency warnings blaring from the phones of local residents intended to give them time to take shelter. Initial information from the JMA put the epicenter of the quake in Chiba Prefecture, east of Tokyo, and said it struck at 10:41 p.m. local time with a depth of 80 kilometers. No tsunami alert again was issued. The U.S. Geological Survey put the quake's strength at magnitude 5.9 with a depth of 61 kilometers. It was one of the strongest tremblers to rock Tokyo since the massive 9 earthquake and tsunami disaster in 2011 that killed thousands. Some bullet and local train services were also halted as a precaution after the quake. Now, that quake was relatively strong compared to recent quakes in Tokyo, which, like much of Japan, regularly experiences seismic activity. Newly elected Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, who took office just 3 days before that quake, in a tweet urged residents to please take action to save lives while checking the latest information.
Meanwhile, a magnitude 5.2 earthquake jolted Batangas early Friday, according to the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, or PHIVOLCS. The tectonic quake struck 19 kilometers northwest of Calatagan at 2:14 in the morning and had a depth of 131 kilometers. Intensity 2 was felt in Calatagan. Reported intensity is the traditional way of knowing the intensity based on reports by people who felt the earthquake. Now, the following instrumental intensities were also recorded. Intensity 2, Calapan City and Puerto Galera, Oriental Mindoro, Makati City, Olongapo City, Intensity 1 in Batangas City and Calatagan, Batangas, Tagaytay City, Cavite, Plaridel, Bulacan, Marikina City. Instrumental intensity is measured using an intensity meter that measures ground acceleration. PHIVOLCS said it's not expecting aftershocks or damage from the quake.
A gigantic sandstorm blocks out the horizon as it rolls towards Sao Paulo in Brazil. Unusually powerful sandstorms have left at least 6 people dead in Sao Paulo in recent weeks as southeastern Brazil grapples with severe drought. Scenes of huge orange dust clouds rumbling across the countryside with winds of up to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour have been seen at least 3 times since the end of September, terrifying residents in urban and rural areas of Sao Paulo and Minas Gerais states. In addition to dealing with extreme drought, the mostly agricultural region also has large open areas uncovered by vegetation, which also leaves land vulnerable to soil being caught up in high winds. Brazil is facing its worst drought in 91 years, which has led to a critically low water level in hydroelectric reserves in the central, western, and southern parts of the country, driving up electricity costs.
Meanwhile, back here in the country, parts of the Visayas and the Bicol region will continue to experience rains as Tropical Depression Maring maintains its strength. That according to Pag-asa Friday afternoon. At around 5:30 in the afternoon, Pag-asa reported that Maring still packs maximum sustained winds of 55 kilometers per hour near the center and gustiness of up to 70 kilometers per hour. The tropical depression was last observed at 715 kilometers east of Catarman, northern Samar, or 640 kilometers east-northeast of Borongan City, eastern Samar. Its trough will continue to cause light to moderate with at times heavy rains that are still possible over the Bicol region, eastern Visayas, Caraga, Cebu, and Bohol. Flooding and rain-induced landslides are still likely, especially in areas highly susceptible to these hazards. No tropical cyclone wind signal was hoisted over any part of the country. However, Maring and the northern or northeasterly winds prompted Pag-asa to issue a gale warning over the northern seaboard of northern Luzon and the eastern seaboard of the Visayas.
In other news, President Tsai Ing-wen reiterates at a forum that the island does not seek military confrontation, but will defend its freedom. Former Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott, who is in Taiwan on a personal capacity, also spoke at the Yushan Forum in Taipei, saying solidarity with Taiwan was vital.
The Republic of Taiwan does not seek military confrontation. It hopes for a peaceful, stable, predictable, and mutually beneficial coexistence with its neighbors. But Taiwan will also do whatever it takes to defend its freedom and democratic way of life. Taiwan is fully committed to collaborating with regional players to prevent armed conflicts in the East China, South China Seas, and in the Taiwan Strait.
Sensing that its relative power might have peaked with its population aging, its economy slowing, and its finances creaking, it is quite possible that Beijing could lash out disastrously quite soon. Our challenge is to try to ensure that the unthinkable remains unlikely and that the possible does not become the probable. I don't believe America could stand by and watch China swallowed up. I don't believe Australia should be indifferent to the fate of a fellow democracy of almost 25 million people. Nothing is more pressing right now than solidarity with Taiwan.
These 50 people are dead in Afghanistan's Kunduz mosque blast, according to hospital sources. Now, there was no immediate claim of responsibility for the attack, but the Islamic State group, bitter rivals of the Taliban, has claimed responsibility or claimed similar recent atrocities. Residents of the Kunduz, the capital of the province of the same name, told AFP the blast hit a Shiite mosque during Friday prayers, the most important of the week for Muslims. Kunduz's location makes it a key transit point for economic and trade exchanges with Tajikistan. It was the scene of fierce battles as the Taliban fought their way back into power this year.
We got more stories after this.
This portion is brought to you by Innovexcel Printing Services, excellence in innovation. For inquiries, you may call Mark D. Mayuga at 0917-900-6396.
Bukod po sa talagang may itsura po yung asawa kasi ano po siya, talagang sinasali po sa may company namin, kinukuha siya mga muse-muse. Ayun po, talagang marami nanliligaw. Talagang hindi ko alam kung sasagutin niya ako, pero nagporsigil lang po talaga ako kasi gusto ko siya. Bukod sa yung may itsura siya, yung ugali niya talagang palangiti, mabait. Marami pong magsasabi talagang ang bait-bait ng asawa ko. Excited siya eh. Sabi niya pa nga bago siya maoperahan, makikita na natin yung mga baby natin. Nakangiti pa siya, makikita na natin sila. Pero hindi niya nakita eh. Natutuwa ako sa mga anak ko kasi titingin sila sa akin, talagang pinapakita rin nila, kaya mo yan, parang yung kaya mo yan, tatay. Nakatingin din sila sa akin. Ako na nga lang yung meron sa kanila. Hindi ko na po hahayaang mawala pa. Ako na lang yung magbibigay ng para sa kanila, yung mga obligasyon ko, gagawin ko lahat para sa kanila. Ang dami. Maraming salamat po. Napakalaking tulong po sa amin yan.
Buong mundo ay naapektuhan ng COVID-19 pandemic. Mayaman at mahirap, lahat ay nagsisikap para makabangon at makabawi. Even celebrities are not exempted from lockdowns, quarantines, and other government restrictions. Many TV shows, movie productions, and even song recordings have halted. Paano ba naapektuhan ng pandemic ang kabuhayan ng ating mga kilalang celebrities? In this episode, we'll find out how two famous names in the entertainment industry started their own businesses. Songwriter and record producer Mr. Venny Saturno and TV personality Ms. Nene Tamayo will share their journey of entrepreneurship.
We make sure na maging parte tayo ng solusyon at maging parte tayo ng pagpapagaan ng sitwasyon.
Patatalo sa pandemic, lalaban tayo. Sabi nga, habang buhay. Sabi nga, bawat gising, it's a blessing.
All these in this episode of Open for Business.
Welcome back to the news. The U.S. Senate voted Thursday to stave off a credit default that would have sparked a recession and world markets as Democrats and Republicans agreed to a stopgap fix to raise the nation's debt limit. The breakthrough, which temporarily defers the crisis by adding another $480 billion to the allowable debt total, came with an estimated 11 days to go until the country would have no longer have been able to borrow money or pay off loans for the first time in its history. Republican Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell offered the deal Wednesday as his party was set to vote against House-passed Democratic plans for a hike in the nation's borrowing cap of more than a year. Take a look.
We have reached agreement to extend the debt ceiling through early December, and it's our hope that we can get this done as soon as today. I yield the floor.
The President, the Speaker, and the Democratic leader had 3 months' notice to do their jobs. But for 2.5 months, the Democratic leaders did nothing and then complained that they were actually short on time. The majority didn't have a plan to prevent default, so we stepped forward. The pathway our Democratic colleagues have accepted will spare the American people any near-term crisis while definitively resolving the majority's excuse that they lacked time to address the debt limit through the 304 reconciliation process.
Rather than solving the crisis, the new arrangement kicks the can down the road to coincide with another major funding deadline, a shutdown that would kick in from December 3 when the government's coffers theoretically run out, closing federal services and properties. Republicans and Democrats had been at odds for weeks over how to raise or suspend the U.S. borrowing limit by October 18, when the Treasury Department estimates the country will exhaust its emergency measures to pay the nation's bills. The United States spends more money than it collects through taxation, so it borrows money via the issuing of government bonds, seen as among the world's most reliable investments. Around 80 years ago, lawmakers introduced a limit on how much federal debt could be accrued. The ceiling has been lifted dozens of times to allow the government to meet its spending commitments, usually without drama and with the support of both parties. But some Republicans have voiced frustration about new Democrat spending proposals.
Meanwhile, the Indian government has agreed to sell the heavily indebted Air India to the Tata conglomerate for 100 billion rupees, or about $2.4 billion according to the Finance Ministry. Tuhin Kanta Pandey, head of the government privatization department, said that Talachi PVT Limited, a subsidiary of the Tata conglomerate, won the bidding for the airline. The transaction is expected to close by the end of December this year. Tea to Steel conglomerate Tata founded the airline as Tata Air in 1932 before it was privatized in the 1950s. But in the 1990s, Air India began to struggle with competition on domestic and international routes from Gulf carriers and no-frills airlines, and the firm started amassing huge losses and debts. Tata also owns 51% in Indian airline Vistara. Singapore Airlines holds the remaining 49%, as well as an 84% stake in Air Asia India, all of which Tata will now try to bring together.
Tesla chief Elon Musk told investors on Thursday that the leading electric vehicle maker is moving its headquarters from Silicon Valley to Texas, where it is building a plant. Tesla chief Elon Musk told investors on Thursday again that he is moving its headquarters from Silicon Valley to Texas. And he also noted that the cost of living in Silicon Valley is high for workers, with home prices putting them out of reach for workers who often wind up with long commutes. Musk has clashed with regulators in California and is among high-profile tech figures who personally left the state for places with lower income taxes and less regulation.
Meanwhile, 18, or rather, we'll be back with more news right after this short break.
I will never be alright. Just stay, always be by my side. Right here, right now, lady, just stay. Don't go away.
Hi guys, this is C13 at abangan niyo po ako bilang guest performer sa Letters and Music sa darating na Sabado, October 9, 1 to 2 p.m. At syempre, ito lang yan po sa Net25. See ya!
Ang
ating himig.
Ang OPM. Ito ang himig ng lahi.
Relax na relax, ano? At ikaw din, pwede mong maramdaman ang ganyang kaginhawaan. Hindi lang sa katawan, maging sa buhay at sa bulsang dati walang laman. Paano yan? Yan ang ating tututukan.
Ang malaking kita po, talagang nasa negosyo.
Ito rin yung nagbuhay sa amin. Ito po yung nag-survive sa amin dito sa pandemic na ito. Na-meet ko sila Ma'am Baby at Sir June. Doon ko nakita na kayang kumita ng malaki.
From zero po talaga kami. Pero dahil po dito, naitaguyod po namin ang aming buhay.
Ako po si Robin Padilla at ito po ang unlad. Kagapay sa hanap buhay.
Sa hanap buhay.
Tututukan niyo po ang mga inihanda namin para sa inyo today. Tuloy-tuloy pa rin ang paghahatid natin ng mga latest news at happenings here and abroad. So huwag na kayong mag-alala. Okay, kami ang magpapasaya sa inyo. Ngayon tuloy napapaisip ako, ano pa kaya ang inihanda natin for our viewers? Tumambay na muna kayo dito dahil ang Team Kada ang magbibigay sa inyo ng good vibes every morning! Yeah. Mga Kada, isang buwan na tayong magkakasama. Naku, salamat po sa araw-araw na pagsubaybay sa amin. Sana ho pagpatuloy nyo na mag-like, mag-share, mag-comment sa aming Facebook at social media pages. At huwag niyo hong kalimutan na mag-suggest dahil gagawin ho namin lahat ng gusto nyo. Thank you po!
Welcome back. 18 former NBA players have been charged with allegedly defrauding the league's health insurance scheme, almost $4 million, according to the New York prosecutors on Thursday, U.S. time. The prosecutors accused Terrence Williams, who played for the New Jersey Nets and Houston Rockets, of orchestrating the fraud in which they say he received kickbacks totaling $230,000 US. Glenn Big Baby Davis, who was part of the Boston Celtics side that won the 2008 NBA championship, and Tony Allen, a six-time NBA All-Defensive Team member, were also charged in the scheme that allegedly ran from at least 2017 to last year. According to the indictment, the accused defrauded the NBA players' health and welfare benefit plan by submitting false reimbursement claims for medical and dental services that had not been carried out. Other players charged include former Los Angeles Lakers guard Shannon Brown, Sebastian Telfair, who played for several NBA teams, including the Cleveland Cavaliers, and ex-Los Angeles Clippers pick Darius Miles. Allen's wife was also charged. 15 of the 19 accused were arrested Thursday around the country, with Allen, Christopher Douglas Roberts, Gregory Smith, and Eddie Robinson still at large. Telfair was due to appear in court in New York later Thursday.
Here's MJ Racadio with an exclusive interview with Ronnie del Carmen, Oscar-nominated Filipino director at Pixar.
Who's behind Oscar-nominated Inside Out? I had a one-on-one interview with Oscar-nominated co-director Ronnie del Carmen. Take a look.
Here we go. All right, open.
This looks new.
Think it's safe?
What is it? Okay, caution. There is a dangerous smell, people. Hold on, what is that?
This is disgust. She basically keeps Riley from being poisoned, physically and socially.
That is not brightly colored or shaped like a dinosaur. Hold on, guys. It's broccoli!
Oh, moving forward, with this amazing career of yours, particularly you were nominated for the Oscars. Share us your work in Inside Out, and where did you get the concept? I know one of the story, you were the supervisor of that, and then you also co-directed it.
I'm the co-director of the movie, and my partnership is with the director, Pete Docter, who I've worked with before when we made Up. And that was such a great partnership. He invited me to be his co-director on his next movie, which became Inside Out. And Inside Out was Pete Docter's idea that came from a moment wherein he was wondering why his daughter, Ellie, whom we know because we lived in the same city here in Oakland. We were neighbors. My daughter would babysit his kids. And then at some point, his daughter, Ellie, was more quiet and more kind of not as cheerful as she used to be. And he was wondering, he was like, what happened to my little girl who used to just bounce around happy and talkative, and everything was about daddy this, daddy, daddy, daddy. And then that just stopped. So as a parent, he wondered, what's going on? What happened to my kid? What's going on inside her head? And that meant that he wanted to find out. And the best way for Pete Docter to find out is to make a movie about it.
Wow.
Because you will get lots of answers, because you're going to be able to talk to people who are experts on the brain, emotion, psychology, psychiatry. We got educated as to what emotions are.
That's so clever, Ronnie.
As I get older, I feel the need to be able to tell stories that I feel is relevant to me, because having grown up in the Philippines and left it when I was already turning 30, I felt like I've let go of my connection to my native country, and then because of that, I've grown distance from it. I don't understand it as well as I feel I need to. The moment is that it kind of indicts me. It's like traveling through Southeast Asia and finding that my connection to all of these nations in Southeast Asia is very, very powerful.
Well, I just saved our lives. Yeah, you're welcome.
Riley, if you don't eat your dinner, you're not going to get any dessert.
Wait, did he just say we couldn't have dessert?
That's anger. He cares very deeply about things being fair.
So that's how you want to play it, old man? No dessert? Oh, sure. We'll eat our dinner right after you eat this.
Right. Here comes an airplane.
Oh, airplane. We got an airplane, everybody.
Until next time, tune in to Eagle News. MJ Ricardo here. We live in interesting times.
Thank you so much, MJ. One of my favorite movies of all time. Very, very well done. Okay, I hope to see you on Monday, MJ. And that's it for tonight's broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I am CJ Hero. The news continues tomorrow.
And at the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. We'll see you back tomorrow. I'm Alma Angeles, and
we live in interesting times.